Welcome to Created Healthy. I'm Dawn Combs. It's a common idea that God gave us everything we need in nature, but do we believe it enough to walk that out in truth? Often the very same people who say this go looking for answers on how to use food and medicine from man-made sources. Everything man creates comes with a user's manual. Why would God be any different? I challenge you to join me in seeking revelation about our body, mind, soul, and spirit health by digging into His written word and in practicing pure science in the visible world of His creation. There are many different types of power that are demonstrated throughout the Bible. There's God's ultimate power. There is power vested in leaders that God calls. There is power vested in the head of a household, the structure that is in place from a father or a man as he's married and is raising children. There is the power vested in a priest. And there are kings mentioned both inside Israel and outside Israel that are two different types of kingship. Here in 1 Samuel, 8 through 11, this power structure, or the question of power comes into play because Israel has once again asked to be just like all the other nations around them and has asked to have an earthly king. And I struggled with this thinking about, so what's wrong with that? We have a government in the United States, and there's definitely issues there. You can see monarchies around the world, and I've learned different perspectives about those different power entities, and I think we have to look at it though from a biblical standpoint because Samuel was getting old here, and he appointed his sons to be judges. He had two sons, Joel and Abijah, and he had appointed them to be judges. And just like his substitute father before him, Eli, his sons that he is raising turn out to pervert justice and take bribes and misuse their power, and they're not in it for God's heart. So Israel comes under attack again, and at that point they say, we really want a king. And what they ask for in this king is for somebody to judge them. Basically, I'm reading this as give them their boundary lines, what they can do and what they can't do, and somebody to go out ahead of them in battle. This rings pretty, it reminds me of what I heard of how God was going before when Israel was truly following God, how God would go before them into battle, and how God was arranging their boundaries, their rules, and judging them through Moses. Moses took his power from God. He didn't have his own power in and of himself. So Samuel, throughout these chapters, is really disappointed. He's disappointed that his sons aren't taking over in the leader role, that sort of power that God had meted out before as judges, and the people weren't accepting. And God actually reassures Samuel and says, look, it's not you that they're rejecting here. They're rejecting me. And so we have this really strong understanding that the rejection or the asking of the people for a king is the rejection of God. And that is an interesting thing to kind of break down because we have so many other people in leadership roles. And how is it that we can have a father or husband at the head of the household and have this model of him being in an authority, a place of authority, and to be looked up to and to deferred to? How is that not going against God? but wanting a king is. So I think we have to look into here what's going on. First of all, the reason they're asking for a king is they want to be just like the nations around them. And in this, I hear sort of a reverberation of what we see today of, I want to be just like everybody else. I want to be just like the cool kids. I want to run with the crowd. I want to blend in. And God's calling is always for us to be separate, for us to be holy, which is pulled out to the side and outside of the main people in a culture. Samuel explains, and he's warning the people, that he says, if you have a king, he will require that your sons are pulled away from the home to build an army. Some will work the fields for the king. He will take your daughters as perfumers, cooks, and bakers. He's going to take your best fields, vineyards, and groves. He's going to take 1/10 of your seed and your vineyards. He's going to take men and women for servants. He's going to take your best men and your donkeys, 1/10 of your flock, and you will become servants. And I look through this, and what I see is, well, all of those things are existing in the culture now. We've got the vineyards, and people are setting aside all of that. But they're setting aside, they're working when God is the king. They're working in God's plan. They're working within his design. They're tending the fields and having that relationship that God had designed for us to have with the land. And then in gratitude, they're bringing those things directly to God. And I think what Samuel is saying here is that instead of all of this that you're going to set aside directly to a king, one king, which is God, you're now going to have to separate out yet another portion to go to this king, this human person that you are going to set aside to judge you and to go out in front in battle. And in essence, he's going to take the best of what you have and redistribute it to you as he sees fit, which is another sort of, wow, that sounds familiar as to what's going on right now. Samuel is struggling with this because the people won't listen. They're like, yeah, that sounds good. That's fine, whatever. And so God says, fine, go ahead and do this, and I'm going to show you who it is. And so God picks somebody. He picks Saul. And right away, we see this in action because Samuel goes out and meets Saul, and as for proof, he gives Saul these signs that God is with him. So Saul is selected, and I've heard some people suggest that Saul was only selected by the people. He wasn't selected by God, and therefore that was why there were failings. God selected Saul. He was beautiful. He was tall. He was strong. He was everything that you would expect a king and a leader of all of your people to be. And when Samuel went to him, he was sort of a humble man. And we go through these signs that Samuel gives him. After I send you away from our meeting, you're going to run into some people that are going to be on their way to worship God. And one of them will be carrying 3 young goats, another one will be carrying 3 loaves, and another a jug of wine. And these are things that these people will be carrying to the temple. These are things that they're commoners. They're on their way to, they were on their way to, I have it here, to Bethel. They're on the way to honor God with what they have gathered and the best of their flock. And Samuel tells him that they will offer you 2 of those loaves and you will take them. And I think about this interaction of we would just read it as face value. Okay, it's a sign. They're going to give you 2 loaves and you're going to take them. And that could be you will take them because I'm telling you you should. Or it could be sad. He could be saying this in a sad way. And you're going to take them. because that's what a king is going to do. A king is going to divert some of the things that were meant to go to honor God, and is going to take them for himself. He's going to take that honor. He further tells him that he's going to run into a group of prophets that are going to be carrying instruments and prophesying. And the Spirit of the Lord is going to come upon you, and you will prophesy just like them, and you will be changed into another man. I think we have to wonder, what man is he being changed into? God is certainly trying to use Saul. If Saul is willing, he's trying to give the people what they want, even though he knows where the outcome is going to go. And then Samuel says, I will come to you after this happens, and I will sacrifice for you. And as Saul turns away, it says that God changed his heart. And then all that was prophesied, everything that Samuel said was going to happen, happened that day. So Saul starts out well here. Nahash, the Ammonite, takes Jabesh Gilead, and this becomes a really big, scary thing. He threatens to gouge out the right eye of everyone in Jabesh Gilead to reproach Israel, and they call out to Saul. This is his first test. And Saul calls out the troops, and everybody joins him, and he winds up winning. And those that had doubted Saul, those that were maybe thinking, hey, maybe we shouldn't have a king, had not spoken up, but people knew that it was going on. And so there was a large majority of Israelites that were cheering and excited that now we have a king, God has given us a king. And then there was this contingent of folks that were like, I don't think this is a good idea, guys. And so when Saul is successful against Nahash, that group, that mob mentality says, okay, Saul, let's kill all the people that doubted you, that didn't believe you should be king. And Saul says, no, the Lord did the winning here, and we are all a country together. We're all people together, and God is leading us. And so his first test, his first time out, he does well here, and the people crown him a king. But I think that this is just in the signs that Samuel sends Saul away from him to look for. We can see very clearly that one of the big dangers of demanding a king is that the king is going to be held up above all of humanity, all of the people in this culture, and he will have to be revered. He isn't just a judge that is part of a team. And so I think back to contrasting that to a man as head of household. A man as head of household isn't getting things diverted from God to him. He must be listening into God, or he's not a good leader. And this is absolutely the problem of a king. You have to trust that the king is listening into God's will, and then holding those boundaries that you expected him to hold in ways that God wants the boundaries to be held. But that temptation of being revered and being given ultimate power in a king can lead the people very far astray. We can see that in all the other spaces. We had judges that went the wrong way. We had judges that followed God. There are men who lead the head of a household and go the wrong way, and they're not listening to God, and they listen to themselves instead. They look for wisdom inside instead of asking for God, and they become a faulty leader. But nothing is being diverted. We aren't bringing sacrifices that we're not splitting up our sacrifice and giving some to God and some to the head of the household. We are honoring the head of the household in the power structure there. The woman has power as well, and it is a team. And the children have power, and they are supposed to be part of the system that creates. A king doesn't have to be part of that. A king is all powerful. And so the power is different. Power is something we talk about in every human society, and to see it here in the Bible and to see this dissonance, this struggle of what is good power and what is bad power, it is everything to the health of a community, to the health of a society or a culture or a country. And Samuel knows that this is a big problem, that there's a reason why God had not put kings over Israel thus far. And God knows that this is going in the wrong direction. This hurts his heart that people are choosing. He says they're rejecting me, and they want in place. They want something that represents my power, only in human form, to worship and to follow. And it's a really slippery slope that I think we're going to keep discussing probably for the next few episodes here. I pray that God is blessing you today, and that you struggle too with what is appropriate power. If you are in a position of power, it's important that you struggle with this, because you have to know that it's so critical that you're seeking God's heart and your position of authority or power is being used properly. I'll see you back here on another day. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share with a friend. And I'm always interested in hearing what God is laying on your heart. So drop me a rating or review, or join the conversation on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube at Dawn Combs Really.